Do you like books? No. Okay. Do you like writing books? No. Okay, well, do you like giving yourself writing challenges where you try and write an entire novel in 4 weeks? No. Okay, well, that's kind of what I'm doing. That's the whole point of this video. Hello, people of the internet. That's right, the title of this video did not deceive you. I am going to be attempting to write an entire book in 1 month. The goal for this challenge is that I'm able to write a relatively short novel, about 150 to 200 pages long. So you know, it's not War and Peace or anything, but it's your standard novel length. With that in mind, I would theoretically have to be writing about 37 to 50 pages a week if I want to be able to meet my deadline. And you're probably asking yourself some sensible questions like, why?
Why?
And the answer is, I don't know. I just wanted to, I guess. I like to challenge myself in all aspects of my life because I frankly can't do anything normally. Plus, if I don't set a deadline for myself, I never get anything done. This isn't my first book either. For anyone who's new to me and the general insanity that I bring to the internet, I have actually already published 4 books, so that's pretty good. I've also had some smaller works of mine published here and there, so I'm not new to writing by any means. However, I generally tend to write kids' books, and my first novel that I ever wrote was just kissing 300 pages, and it was kind of just mostly aimed at preteens. Every other book that I've written has been a children's picture book. But frankly, I've kind of been just getting really tired of writing kids' picture books, and I've been wanting to branch out and, you know, try new horizons, see what's out there. Which is why I have decided to write a romantic novel. Ooh. Fun fact about me, I hate romance. Just another element to make this challenge even more challenging. I'm a writer. Well, to say I hate romance might be a bit strong. It's just not really my thing. I've never really liked romantic movies or rom-coms, and I even generally tend to get bored with romance elements thrown into other genres. I don't know, I just do not generally care for romantic subplots in TV and movies. It's just not for me. Which is why you're probably wondering why I would even attempt to write a romance novel to begin with. Well, basically, I just like to watch videos online where people kind of tease and make fun of and generally critique romance movies. And a common thing that I usually tend to hear when people talk about it is that these plots are just so easy that literally anyone can write them. It's something that I think a lot of us have heard about romantic stories, whether you like them or not. Oh, literally anyone could have written that story. Okay, well if it's so easy, then why didn't you write it? I say sarcastically in response. So I, a person who has never written a romantic book in her entire life, am going to set the record straight and find out if they really are as easy to write as everyone likes to say.
I think it's genius. I think it's the beginning of something extraordinary. I think it's like a $1 billion idea.
But before we jump into writing the sucker, first we need to figure out what we're writing. Welcome to the ideation stage. That's right, it's brainstorming time. Now I want my book to be 2 things. 1, an engaging story with interesting characters, and 2, one that is similar to other romance books. Basically, I want my book to be able to sit at the lunch table with all the other romance novels. I'm not trying to recreate the wheel or make some sort of critical, analytical, satirical statement about the genre, okay? I want this book to be something that any general romance enthusiast can enjoy. What do I look like to you? Some sort of Hollywood executive trashing on all your favorite characters to make a statement about how you suck for being fans of them? No, okay? This isn't Joker 2. I want people to like the stuff I make. So I began my admittedly pretty brief research stint into the common story tropes that will occur in romance novels. Okay, so you got your classic enemies to lovers, love at first sight, forced proximity, fake relationship, amnesia, the bet, age gap? What? There sure is a lot of lying that goes into these romance stories. And cheating. You would not believe how many of these romance stories have cheating plot lines. And a lot of the time, the protagonist is the cheater, and we're supposed to be rooting for them. Like Anna Karenina, or Karenina, how do you pronounce it? Anna Karen. Something borrowed. The Great Gatsby. What is going on? So from what I've gathered, this story is going to need to involve some form of infidelity in one way or another, a misunderstanding of some kind, and I'm just cherry picking here, but I'm also gonna go with the best friend's brother trope. But I'm gonna mix things up a little bit and instead make it the fiance's brother. Ooh, scandalous, I know. Since I personally have an astounding revulsion to cheating and adultery of any kind, I simply cannot, in good conscience, make my protagonist the cheater here. It's just not cool. Don't do it.
Don't do it! Just don't do it!
So instead, I am going to make her fiance the cheater. And then my lovely lady will be getting herself consoled by the fiance's brother. Oh, how sparks will fly. Now obviously, every romantic story needs a romantic setting. So I'm going with a lake house. Ah, lake houses. The perfect setting for romance or slasher movies. There is nothing in between. Now I've never been to a lake house before, but They seem cool. I'd go to one. I'm also gonna begin my story with all my characters in the big city when my protagonist learns about her fiance's sluttiness and then escapes to the beautiful countryside. Because of all the Hallmark movies that I have never once watched have taught me anything, it's that every good romance needs a girl to be fleeing from the disgusting butt crack of a city and go out to the peaceful countryside for the story to really get good. I don't like cities, can you tell? I've also chosen to use a pen name for this book for a few reasons. One being that I am writing this book in a month, and I kind of don't really want my name attached to it for that reason. That, and I've also written several books for kids, and I've had my actual name attached to that, and I really don't want to cause confusion. One thing that I find is people generally like consistency with creators, and if they start making different stuff than what, you know, the audience is typically used to, they tend to get upset. It could just make people unhappy, and that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make people feel love. Not that I'm a famous author or anything, I'm definitely not, but I really don't want to risk parents expecting to get a kid's book, and instead end up with whatever eldritch horror I end up producing from this little experiment. It's just about consistency. And shame. So I have chosen to use the very practical pen name, Beatrice Uma Tar Tenenbaum. I think it's a pretty solid name, and according to Google, there are no other authors using it, so it's free reign. I'm shocked. I was expecting so many Beatrice Uma Tar Tenenbaums to be running around the internet. Admittedly, it does make me sound a bit like an 18th century phantom or something. Talk about a ghostwriter, am I right? Terrible. Terrible. But I mostly just picked it because the initials spell out the word butt. I know, I'm a child. But now that we have the plotline mapped out and my goal established, let's hop into writing this bad boy. Oh, Nelly, I cannot wait. Currently, as I'm filming this, I have not started writing the book yet, so we're gonna find out together how this goes. Something I forgot to research before actually starting this project was what kind of perspective I was going to write my book in. I personally would have assumed this would be written in the first person perspective, but according to Google, romance novels are typically written in the third person. For some reason that really surprised me. I don't know why I thought that, but hey, I'm cool with it. I hate writing in the first person. This book is going to be even more challenging to write though, because I've actually never read a single romance novel before. Not one. Not even in school. I never even got to read any Jane Austen. I didn't get to read any wholesome, lighthearted stories in school. Oh no, no. I just got to read crap like The Lottery, A Modest Proposal, Antigone, 50 Shades of Grey. I'm just kidding about that last one, though it was on my summer reading list one year when I was going into my sophomore year of high school. It was just for summer reading. No one forced me to read it, but it was on the list, weirdly enough. Regardless, the other crap I had to read was not much better. I'm looking at you, A Modest Proposal. That story is actually so disgusting and vile that I actually blacked out in class while reading it one time. I'm not even kidding. I literally almost fell down the stairs in my high school because I had to excuse myself early because I thought I was actually gonna throw up reading that. That was the one and only time that I ever had such a visceral reaction to reading a story before, or kind of consuming any other form of media. It's just really bad. So yeah, I would have killed for some Jane Austen, frankly. The closest thing that I've ever come to reading a romance novel would probably be Phantom of the Opera. I love that story. But that's really more of a mystery novel than a romance, and it mostly focuses around a creepy stalker who cries all the time. And of course, I'm talking about Rao. Book Rao is such a freak. Though I also have read Carmilla, which despite being advertised as a gothic romance, really kind of just also reads like a mystery novel. Take it from someone who's read the book, it's really not a romance at all. All of these movies are adapting it as this love story. It's not. It's really not. Nothing particularly romantic happens in that book, if you ask my opinion. To me, it reads more like a warning to people against being overly welcoming and nice to others, as blind generosity and charity can often lead to your own suffering. At least that's the way I interpreted the book, but apparently I'm in the minority. All of that is to say is that I am not a romance expert by any means, and I basically never read a romance novel in my entire life, so this is gonna be fun. Day one, I was able to crank out 16 pages, not too shabby. My goal is to write 10 pages per day, so that way I can hit 50 pages per week. This way I'll have 2 extra days to write as much as I can, so that way, just in case something happens in my life that means that I can't get to writing or whatever else, and just in case of time conflicts or any other situation going on in my life, it's just a safety blanket, you know? Who doesn't like safety blankets? By day 2, I had already reached chapter 4 and written 27 pages, so I was on kind of a roll that day. Day 3 was admittedly a bit trickier for me to get stuff done because I was pretty busy that day, and I only ended up writing about 6 pages. Ooh, but hey, those 6 pages were pretty good, alright? I tried. As long as I hit my 50-page goal by the end of the week, I'll be happy. Day 4, I actually got kind of bored writing my story and ended up dedicating an entire chapter to talk about metal music. So, what can I say? I got sick of all the sappy romance. I wanted to mix things up a little bit, plus it fills pages. Does it matter that it's sidetracked away from the main story? No, it's my book. I can do what I want.
Stop acting like you know the way ahead, like you know the rules. There are no rules, man. We're lost.
But can you guess what kind of music I was listening to while writing that chapter? By the end of the week, I had managed to crank out 68 pages of my book. I know, pretty good, right? And that's with taking a day off from writing. Pretty good first week, all things considered. So far, this challenge isn't so bad. This challenge is killing me. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's going extremely well for me.
Wow, this was way too easy.
Even on the first day of the second week, I was able to crank out another chapter, even though I was kind of out of it while writing that chapter, but hey, I did it. I usually like to wait to start writing my book till the end of the day when I'm done with all of my day-to-day activities. You know, like skydiving, wrestling alligators, everyone's usual schedule. Of course, I can get kind of tired while trying to write at night, and I think it's leading to some very weird results, especially in the latest chapters. The situations I'm putting my characters in are starting to get kind of weird, but I'm actually genuinely surprised at how well this is going. I guess I'm not really overthinking my story too much. I'm kind of just flying right through this thing. I know a lot of writers can kind of struggle with getting their story into the writing phase. Trust me, I know. There are plenty of books that I actually want to write that I still haven't actually managed to crank out yet. And I think a lot of that comes from the fear of not really knowing where to start, or being worried that you're not going to have the right words to properly say what you want to say in your story. But I'm just spitballing, of course. Naturally, I don't have any of these thoughts myself. Why would I? I'm perfect. But I can imagine other people would. So I think for a lot of people to get past that point, a good idea is to try and do sort of what I'm doing, you know, just try writing something totally random. Something that you have no personal attachment to in any way story-wise. That way, you don't have to worry about not getting it right because you're not that passionate about it to begin with. I'm making it sound like I don't care about this book, but you know what I mean. That way, if you start with something that you're not super attached to, if it ends up not turning out exactly the way you wanted and it's not perfect like you have in your brain, you know, it's not something that you're super passionate about. It's not your magnum opus. So, you know, you can kind of let those things go and you'll learn for next time. Currently, as I'm saying this, I'm at the climax of my story, okay? I'm right here. I did start to realize that I think I might have a slight tonal problem with my story, though. The beginning and climax of the story are very serious, very grounded, somewhat realistic to the best of my abilities, but then I did also start adding moments of hilarity during the rising action section. I just wanted to add some nice light moments of romance that are somewhat loosely based on stuff that's happened to me in my life. Very, very loosely though. But I am starting to notice that some of those scenes seem pretty rom-com-y and cutesy, while my climax scene is extremely serious and somewhat dark, like just from the way that I wrote it. It's giving me tonal whiplash, and I'm the author. I can't even imagine how it's gonna feel as the reader. I'm probably gonna go back in once I finish writing this thing to either lighten things up or darken things down. One or the other. I guess it's really just a toss-up to how I feel at the time. I'm also slightly worried that this book might end up being shorter than I thought. Currently, as I'm dictating this to you from the past times, I'm on page 96, and I must say, I don't think I'm going to have enough material to stretch this thing out 200 pages. I just don't. But who's to say? I still have a pretty good chunk of story left to cover. I haven't even started Act 3 yet, so who knows? My hypothesis now is that this is probably going to be closer to 150 pages. Hi, Alex. This is Alex from the future. It actually ended up being 147 pages, just so you know. Good guess, though. Pretty close. So I guess that would technically make this book a novella then, instead of a novel. But then again, I don't know. This is just my hypothesis right now as someone who's only on chapter 13. Okay, I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know the future. And besides, even if it does end up being shorter than I expected, I have absolutely no intentions to be going back in and stretching things out when it isn't relevant or necessary. Okay, I don't like to do that just to make the story longer. This isn't some writing assignment in high school where you have to hit 1,000 words per essay. And personally, I really hate when books take things and go on page after page, over-explaining everything that really isn't that deep or complicated. You can tell me about it in a paragraph or two. I don't need 18 chapters. A good example of that happening is from one of my favorite books of all time, Perfume: The Story of a Murderer. Not the movie, the book. The book is good, the movie is bad. Don't watch the movie. I even made a whole video a long time ago just to talk about how much I don't like the movie. The book, however, is quite good. Except for the part where Jean-Baptiste goes into a mountain cave to live like a hermit and lick stalactites. Spoilers, I guess. It's funny because the movie version of that scene goes by so quickly that you barely have time to realize what the heck is even going on. The book has the opposite problem. The book carried on and on about his life in the cave for so long and explained everything going on in so much detail that it extended several chapters. Oh my gosh. Eventually I just started screaming at Jean-Baptiste through the book to get the frick out of the cave. Enough with the cave already. I don't want to hear about you living like a caveman anymore. I'm not interested. I lost interest 20 pages ago. I feel like there could have been a really nice middle ground that the book and the movie just did not find. The point is I really don't want to have that problem coming up in my book. So I'm trying my best to space everything out evenly and give my book enough time that it needs per chapter so that way I'm not overdoing it. You know what I mean? I don't want my readers to get bored and start glazing through the story. That would not be good. Fortunately, I think I added enough scenes of shock and awe to prevent that from happening. Fingers crossed anyway, you'll have to let me know when you read the book. Wink. By the end of the week, I ended up hitting 104 pages, breaking the 100-page milestone I set up for myself and making myself feel pretty good. Let's go! The goal for next week is the same deal, just another 50 pages. Let's see how it goes. I thought I would draw out what I figured the characters would look like. I don't know, it just seemed like a fun idea to me. Usually when I write, I don't like to give my characters a lot of description because personally, I feel like it just takes away from the reader's vision of the character. But on the other hand, this is my book, and I can describe the characters however I want. My characters are gonna look any way that I describe them, and you, the audience, are just gonna have to deal with it. Sucks to be you, audience. Side note, I was kind of on a roll this week. I ended up cranking out 2 chapters in the first day. Then during the rest of the week, I was able to write the entire rest of my book and the epilogue, which ended up spanning about 135 pages. I knew I wasn't gonna hit 200, I just didn't have enough story. But I did end up going back into the beginning of the book to add some more scenes and elements to the earlier chapters, which I felt needed some more juice in order for the story to really work, you know what I'm saying? So I ended up actually finishing the book with a whopping 139 pages. Oh Nelly, so close to 140. You know what's especially funny about the whole process of writing this book though? I have not stopped writing since I started it. I literally have not. And I don't just mean writing this novel nonstop. Oh no, okay? I also do a lot of writing for work, and I also write scripts for YouTube, much like the one I'm reading from right now. All that is to say is that my fingers are going to completely fall off, okay? All I do is type on my computer, and I wonder why I'm one wrong move away from carpal tunnel syndrome. All I have to say is thank goodness I spent so much time playing Nessie Fingers as a kid. I also ended up creating an About the Author section of the book where I made up this entirely random backstory for my pen name, because frankly, Beatrice has a story of her own, and the world needs to hear it. It's not even close to my story though, that's for sure. She might not exist in reality, but she exists in our hearts. We have now entered the editing stage of the process. Everything is written out. That was step 1, just getting words on the page. Step 2 is making sure those things are spelled out correctly and there's continuity with everything and grammatical consistency, you know, the boring stuff. I basically spent the entire week just going back through the book, rereading every single chapter just to make sure that it's 100% accurate. And realistically, I probably missed something. I don't know, I'm dyslexic, what do you want? But I was actually able to get my book to 140 pages with making those tweaks, so that's pretty cool. Another part of the process that a lot of people probably don't think about is designing the cover. I need something snappy, something that'll grab people's attention. Otherwise, no one's gonna want to read this thing. It's just as the old saying goes, always judge a book by its cover. I also decided to take a look at other popular book covers in the genre just to try and get an idea for what the common reader would like, what most avid romance readers come to expect from their book covers. And I just have to say, I will judge a book by its cover because I do not like the way that any of these book covers look. It is totally unappealing to me. Maybe this is why I never got into romance, but I will try and replicate it. I wanted to go for a more minimalistic type of cover, designed by yours truly. The title of the book is called Lost in Your Head because frankly, titles are hard and this was the best I could come up with. So to match the title, I was thinking maybe I could do something involving a brain, or maybe I could like have the boys outside of the head, or maybe do something with like a phone. A phone is kind of important in the story, so maybe do something with that. I don't know, I'm just spitballing. At the moment as I'm writing this, I haven't actually designed the cover yet, so like these are just ideas that I'm coming up with on the fly. Now here are the covers that I actually came up with. So which one do you like best? Be honest, vote now in the comments. I'm just kidding. By the time this video comes out, my book will already be published and I have already picked the cover, so you vote on nothing. But yeah, making the cover was pretty fun. I started with thumbnail sketches just to get an idea out, and then I ended up adapting them and making them a little bit better, trying things out with color, and I eventually landed on the first one I ever did because, I don't know, I guess I just nailed it on the first go. This is also where the worst part of the process comes into play. Formatting. Dun dun dun!
This is disgusting. This is awful in every way.
Formatting is hands down the worst part of making any book. I hate it. I hate it a lot. It involves a lot more math than I personally enjoy, because personally, I don't enjoy math at all.
That's not the way you're supposed to do it, Dad. They want us to do it this
I don't
way.
know that way. Why would they change math? Math is
it's
math.
okay,
Math
Dad.
is math.
I decided to use the dimensions 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches because after a quick Google search, I found that those dimensions are some of the most common for most novels, especially romance novels, so I was like, yeah, alright, keep it simple, I'll go with that. Of course, I decided to change the entire paper size after I wrote the book. So now I have to go back into the entire thing and reformat and reorganize all of the pages, every single paragraph I ever wrote, because I now have to go in and fix the spacing, page breaks, border width, the whole shebang. It's a mess. The most important lesson that we can learn from my horrible mistake is that if you're going to write a book, pick the page dimensions before you start writing the thing. I found working on this project to be really fun because I have a tendency to just give up on my writing projects and then just start working on other ideas, and ultimately then I just never get anything done in the process. It's really annoying, and part of what makes this challenge so great is that it actually forces me to not do that and instead just sit down and write the thing. In a way, this challenge was a good thing. Well, I suppose that's up for audience interpretation, but who knows?
Never half-ass two things. Whole-ass one thing.
Ultimately, from having gone through this entire process, I do certainly feel like a crazier person for having done it, but much like the end of my book, I do kind of want to have a bit of a cheesy, happy ending to the end of this video. I think ultimately there is a good takeaway that you can get from my little experiment, or at least it's something that I can take away. And that is that there's never really going to be a right time to pursue your dreams or passions. We all have things in our lives that we have to do. You know, we have jobs, lives, families, school, you name it, just endless things that keep you busy. And it might seem like a bit of a daunting task to just start taking on these big projects, especially if you're doing it all by yourself like I am for this project, because, you know, it's so easy to give up on your goals halfway through or just forget about them because stuff happens. I mean, I've done that 1,000 times. It's annoying and I hate it. But you know what? Life is short, and there's not always a guarantee that you're going to be able to get stuff done down the line. So, you know, if you want to do something, do it. You have a goal, go after it, whether it's big or small. Learn a language, pick up a hobby, try a sport, whatever makes you happy. Because if you work hard at something and you stay dedicated to it, even when there are days where you just don't feel up for it and it just seems like it's way too hard, if you just push through that feeling and just keep going, chipping away at the thing you want day by day, slowly, little bit at a time, eventually, you're gonna see results. Whether you're working on something for 7 hours or 20 minutes, if you just keep going after that thing you want and just keep pursuing that thing, whether you feel like you're seeing results in the moment or not, even though sometimes it might feel pointless, one day, you're gonna wake up and you're gonna find out that that thing that you were after, that goal that you wanted that seemed so far away, you achieved it because you kept working at it day at a time. I mean, I'm proof of that. There were definitely days where I didn't feel like working on this book. You know, there were moments where I struggled to motivate myself. I was busy, I was tired, I had this going on, I had that going on, but you know, I kept pushing, and here are the fruits of my labor. A book that I personally don't even like the story of. But who knows? Maybe someone will. Okay, I mean, to be honest, this book really isn't made for me, and I wrote it. So if there is anything that you could take away from this video, outside of, you know, buying my book, of course, it's that there's never going to be a good time to start doing something, but that doesn't mean that you can't do something. And I would personally encourage anyone who bothered to stick around this long into the video to just go after your passions, you know? It won't be easy, but hey, what worth doing ever is.
To all of you out there, please keep your dreams alive.
And most importantly, I am never writing a book like this again. Then again, I could always up the ante, try and write a book in a week. Who knows? But if if I do, next time, I'm writing in a genre I like.